Hey kids, Sebastian Fly here, hope you're well, and welcome to Great Missenden, and welcome back to the channel for another bike review. I often start these reviews by saying this is a bike that I've been looking forward to ride. Well, this one absolutely is. Today I'm on a bike that I first saw a couple of years ago at the NEC Motorcycle Live show from a French company called MASH. And when I saw it at Motorcycle Live, I thought that looks like the sort of bike for me. A really nice looking sort of retro scrambler type machine. It's called the MASH X-Ride 650 Trail, and it's the sort of bike that really appeals to me from a looks perspective. First of all, it's got gold wheels, so I always love that, but just the sort of old school vibe about it. And when I say vibe, that is correct, because this is a big single cylinder thumper. Anyway, before we get on to more of that, let me show you around the bike and point out some of the features and functions. Alright, let's take a look at this splendid machine then, or at least I think it looks like a splendid machine. Check this out. First off, what do you notice? Well, these beautiful gold wheels are what I notice. Any bike with gold wheels is alright with me. I think this looks really nice. It's got this little cut-off traily style mudguard look on the front. Reminds me very much of like a Yamaha XT of old, maybe. Massive forks on the front, 21-inch wheel on the front, by the way. There's the air-cooled engine, of which we'll talk more later. Fairly basic swing on, but quite chunky looking on here, and single exhaust on this one as well. Got this very useful rack on the back, which was handy for putting my bag on and carrying my vloggy stuff. I love the general sort of fit and finish on it. Actually, for a bike that's built to a price, there's nothing about it that looks trumpery to me. Some of the welds may be a little bit suspect, but actually the rest of it, the plastics and everything, feel good in quality, I have to say. I think it's a lovely looking bike. One of the interesting things about it is the oil is actually kept in the frame, so there's a little dipstick in there. That's where the oil goes, and yeah, it's a cool looking thing. I think it's what, in my mind, a trails bike or a scrambler should look like. Okay, welcome back aboard the MASH then. So much for how she looks, but how does she ride? Well, exactly as you'd expect a big single thumper to do so. Actually, this, as I say, is a 650cc thereabouts. We'll go through the specs in a moment with the engine, but to start with, the riding position, very comfortable bike to sit on, nice and upright. It's in fact, it's really comfortable. The seat feels nice and padded, the handlebars are nice and wide, just in the right position for me, and it's not too vibraty, which is one of my fears. I'm not usually a big fan of single cylinder thumpers, although I'm a fan of the new Royal Enfields, which are really smooth. This one isn't so smooth, but it's not terribly vibey either. You know, you can live with it. It lets you know you're on a motorcycle, so it's got a bit of character, but it's not so thumpy that it rattles the teeth in your fillings, so that's good. So yeah, riding position, very comfortable. If you have a look at my legs here, you can see they're slightly acute, almost 90 degrees. Hopefully you can see those on the 360 camera, it's not wobbling around too much. And I am sitting pretty much bolt upright. My back feels nice and straight. It's a very big bike, it's very roomy. I'm quite a small fella, but if you're a bigger chap, you'll be absolutely fine on this. Let me show you what the seat looks like. So here is that seat, nice and thick padding on here, and nicely finished. The only thing I would say about it is it's 890mm tall, this, so it's very tall indeed. We'll talk more about that later, but the seat itself, very comfortable. Alright, so much for that. What about the controls and so on? Well, it's a very basic bike, this. It does have switchable ABS on this little button here on the left, and then the switch gear, very simple. Start and stop on this side as usual. On this side, your lights and indicators, and that's about it. As far as the dash, for want of a better term, it's this little LCD dial here. It's got everything you need. It's monochrome. It's got a proper fuel gauge, I'm glad to say. Speed in the middle, clock, temperature gauge, and also battery gauge, which is quite handy. For some reason this one's got a engine check light on at the moment. Look, that little yellow light on, I'm not sure what that's about, but we'll just put that down to this particular bike. We'll ignore that for now. Hopefully we'll get through the review. But the actual little display itself looks alright, quite clear. The mirrors on here, not really to my taste, they're stalky nature. I can see behind me okay on them. They are a little bit blurred with the vibration of the engine again, but don't let me put you off by saying it's vibey, because it's not vibey in a way that would put you off. There's no annoying buzz through the seats. You can feel vibration through the pegs and through the handlebars, but it's not the sort that's going to give you, you know, pins and needles. Just lets you know you're on a motorcycle. I quite like that. The engine on here, plenty of low down grunt. It's quite nice and peppy. Let me show you it. Alright, so let's take a look at this engine and the specs. As you can see, it's a big old lump. Air cooled basically, and it's got a little oil cooler here, and this is the engine that was also found in the Honda Dominator, by the way. So it's a tried and tested unit. It's got 644cc single cylinder, as I say, 39.3 brake horsepower at 6,000 rpm and 32 foot-pounds of torque. So quite a serious old lump for a bike like this. Something I find quite interesting, I don't know if you do too, the way the exhaust done. We know the exhaust here is just a single pipe at the back, which sounds excellent, by the way. When you look at the way the headers come out, it actually comes out of two ports at the front and then feeds round into a single pipe. I don't know, is it just me that finds that interesting? Alright, let's take a left turn here down my favourite bumpy road, just to see what the suspension's like. The suspension on here, I suspect, is quite long travel. I haven't got the details for how long the travel is, but it's pretty tall, the bike in general. And riding up here, my favourite bumpy road, let's purposely taking these bumpy bits. It feels pretty plush, you know. Feels alright, the suspension. Handling wise, the bike feels lovely and light as well. Just going to try the brakes. Car behind me, but it's a little way behind. Let's try the front brake. Quite not too grabby, quite nice feel on the front brake. Let's just try the rear. Yeah, the rear's pretty good as well. Brakes on here at the front, we've got this two-pot caliper on this pedal disc, as we can see. On the rear, a single pot caliper as well, and I don't know what size these discs are, but they work fine, as you saw. Let me just show you the forks on the front of this. These are actually big chunky forks, as you can see, 43mm diameter these are on the front here. I don't know what the travel is, as I say, but it looks pretty tall, and it's got a 21-inch wheel on the front, by the way, as well. Non-adjustable for the suspension. If we come around the back, we can see you've got a 19-inch wheel on the back, and then the rear suspension is has got this remote adjuster for preload as well, so no faffing about with C-spanners under there, which is quite a nice touch on a bike of this type. The weight of the bike is pretty good, actually, 167 kilograms dry, which makes it pretty light. So given it's a big old bike and it feels like you're on a substantial thing when you're riding it, it actually feels very light. So this engine then, as I say, originally designed by Honda, should be pretty bulletproof. And the Chinese company that makes it bought the rights some years ago, so it's not like it's a Chinese knockoff in the sense that they just copied it kind of illegally. It has got Honda's blessing in that they bought the rights to do so. I think I'm right in saying the company's called Shinere that make the engine and the bike, in fact, on behalf of MASH. Now MASH itself is a French company, but the bike is I believe manufactured in China entirely, and I know that always gets a mixed response when I ride a bike that's made in China. And I've ridden a few now, and some are better than others, it has to be said. Some you jump on and they feel a bit cheap and nasty. This one doesn't feel cheap and nasty, I have to say, even though it's a pretty good value bike. I think it's £5,499. Wrong, it's actually £5,599 this one, but still great value, less than £6 for a bike of this type. While I've got you, let me just tell you about the fuel tank on here. 11 litres capacity, which isn't huge, but of course you can expect this to be pretty frugal. So MASH reckon you'll get 67 miles per gallon out of this, so that gives it a range of around about 160 miles to a fill up. Other things to mention on here is that it's got LED lights all round. A bit muddy, but we've got an LED front light, as you can see there, and the indicators are actually a bit cheap and nasty looking, those indicators. Not so keen on those. Other things to mention, it does have span adjustable levers as well, which is a nice little touch. And as I think I mentioned, you've got switchable ABS as well on that button there. Widen her up here. It goes absolutely fine, actually. Yeah, plenty of grunt on here, as you'd expect from a single cylinder. But yeah, as Chinese manufactured bikes go, this one feels good. Sometimes you jump on and the engine sounds a bit weird, sounds a bit trumpery, or the switchgear feels flimsy, or the brakes and the clutch don't feel quite right. This one, I'd say the switchgear does look a bit flimsy, but no more flimsier than, say, a Yamaha. But it all works fine, and it feels nice and solid. There's no terrible rattles and bangs. The ride quality's nice. The build quality looks good on it. It doesn't feel like a cheap bike, even though it very much is in that value for money sector. Of course, you have to compare it to things like the Royal Enfield Interceptor, which comes in at a similar price, and that of course is a twin, so you have to decide, you know, what do you prefer. Gearbox on it is okay actually. Gear change is alright. The only thing I'd say about it is as you change down gear, particularly when you get to the final, let's just check there's something behind me, when you get back down to first, it feels like there's no give on the gear change lever. It's like there's no spring at the bottom. I've come across that before, most recently. I think it was on one of the Royal Enfields, I think. No, it wasn't. It was on the BSA, on the new BSA. That felt the same. But other than that, the gearbox feels absolutely fine. The clutch isn't particularly light, but it's not heavy either. It works fine. As I say, it doesn't feel all loose and horrible. It doesn't feel low quality or anything like that. So the gearbox and clutch absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned. And it handles really nicely. I'm being a little bit careful because this is on brand new knobbly tyres. So the new tyres I've got fitted on this are actually Michelin Anarchy Wilds. They are brand new, as I say, but they seem to feel pretty good. The tyres that come OEM I think are actually made by Kenda, and they don't have a great reputation. So yeah, I think swapping those out is probably a good idea. I think if I had one of these I would be quite tempted to put some aftermarket tyres on, just because then you could take it off-road with a bit more confidence, I think. But these particular knobblies feel alright. They're not making any funny whizzy noises or anything like that. And although it's a slippery old day when I'm recording this in the depths of January, even though you're seeing this review a lot later, I appreciate that. Yeah, the tyres have given me a good degree of confidence, I have to say. So what then, after this first brief ride, am I kind of summarising likes and dislikes about it? Well, I very much like the looks of the bike. I like the way it looks. Its style reminds me of an old XT550, something like that. I like that a lot. I love the gold wheels. Also like the build quality. It feels like a quality machine. The engine sounds nice, and it's got a good deal of go. Also like the price on it. The only thing for me really that I'm not so keen on is that height of it. It is just a bit too tall for me. Come up to a junction here, I can stop and I can show you my feet are on tippy toes, and that's what prevents me, or would prevent me, going off-road on this. I'm 5'8" with 32-inch legs, relatively long for a shorty, but when I stop here, look, stick my feet down and you can see I'm right on the very tippy toes. And that's fine when you're riding on the road, but off-road I would lose a little bit of confidence, which is a shame because I imagine this is a brilliant bike to ride off-road. With that big 21-inch front wheel, some decent suspension travel and decent meaty forks, I imagine it's great off-road, and also nice and light. Something that did rather surprise me about the bike that I should add is that servicing wise you have to service it every 2,500 miles, which is pretty short, and that's not just oil and filters but also valve clearance check as well, so something to bear in mind. So because of that light feel and the good thumpy engine and the comfortable riding position, it's very easy to ride, so I like that about it. But you do need to be a taller person to be completely confident if you want to go off-road on it. But other than that height, can't think of anything at this time that I don't like about it. Mixed feelings on the Chinese manufacture, so I'll leave that with you to decide whether you want to go there or not. I personally don't have a problem with the bikes that feel like they're quality made, and this one does feel like a more of the quality built Chinese bikes as opposed to one of the lesser quality machines, and they are out there. I don't have a problem with that on the mash. I can't think of any other 650cc single thumpers that are sort of retro traily styled out there on the market, so it might have it kind of sewn up for that. And I do love the looks of this. So anyway, as ever, I'll be intrigued to see what you think of the bike. Do stick your comments below. Oh, I snip out here quick. Let me know what you think of it. I was in two minds when I heard that I was getting the bike, but I think for me it is a tentative thumbs up. It rides really nice. So a huge thank you to Mash for lending me the bike. Thank you to you for watching the video. If you've not done so already, do consider hitting that subscribe button. I don't just do reviews here on the Missenden Flyer, but I do bits and pieces about looking after your bike in the garage. I do trips and tours at home and abroad, monthly bike news, basically anything and everything. I try and cover it here on the Missenden Flyer. It'd be great to have you along next time. Right, I'm going to enjoy riding the Mash a little bit longer. I think there's some rain in the air, so I'm not going to be out too long. And my hands are getting colder. Could do some heated grips, that's for sure. Anyway, look forward to speaking to you next time. Until then, this has been the Piston Flyer. Cheerio.